So welcome to the Karsan FS show. This is episode number 16. And we were on dialects, accents, Zaban, Zamana, or Zalalat. And this is still ongoing. I feel like our episodes are just 1 hour marks and not just the completion of a topic. But anyway, I'm of the general opinion that if you start listening to our podcast, you will not be able to stop at the hour mark. So I don't think it makes so much of a difference. So what are we on about now, man? Where are we going?
So, on the topic of travel,
Right.
we briefly touched on what are some countries that you really want to see, and I think this is a topic that comes up often. People are like, hey, what countries are on your bucket list, because surely there's some that grab your curiosity and your interest more than others.
Yeah.
So for you, what are like the top 3 that you want to go to? Like as soon as you get the chance, you're going to these 3 countries.
It's a tough question, man. Because, you'd assume that I would have a hard time reducing it to 3, but I actually have a hard time expanding it to 3.
No way.
Yeah, because यार बात ये है कि हम जाने तो चाहते हैं मगर उतना भी नहीं चाहते. So I think number 1 would be Pakistan. That's definitely got to be there. Which is weird. I think, in the whole world there's about like how many of the Pakistanis that are in Pakistan, they're trying to get out and then we're trying to go back in. So another country that I want to go to is I want to do France. We were just talking about this on the break. I want to do France. And I want to do the non-touristy version of France, which is what we talked about. I want to go to the smaller towns, the sleepy towns. And I think the third one will be England, but England is kind of hard to explain how exactly, because I actually want to go to London because the love of my life lives there, right? But apart from that, take away the fact that she's there right now. What I want to do is I want to go to the small towns in Oxford. I want to go to the British countryside. I want to go to the Shires. I want to see what it's like to live in a place that's 40 minutes away from anything else, right? And I don't want to stay in a hotel. I don't want to. But again, one of the things I respect about you is, I will say things like I don't want to stay in a hotel. But at the end of the day, that might not be what happens. But the reason that you make such a great traveler, and I think you should have your own show, but I think part of the reason is you're very Anthony Bourdain in the fact that you would believe in yourself to be if you went to a small town that had no hotels for 3 hours, I think you would believe in yourself enough to know that you would make a friend that would let you stay at their house for the rest of the week, right? I think you believe in yourself to do that. I might not personally believe in myself that much, and I think even if you weren't able to meet a single soul, that you'd be happy sleeping on a farm, just on top of the grass. So I love that aspect.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I love that aspect to you. I wish I could be like that, but those are the 3 places I want to do. But what are the 3 places that you want to do, bud?
Man, I love your list, by the way, especially especially your reasons for wanting to go there. I think they're very very meaningful reasons. It's not just that place, I want to take a selfie at the Eiffel Tower, or I want to get a picture of Brazil, the fireworks at midnight, the New York fireworks. It's more of something meaningful, of why you want to go there, what you want to see there.
Yeah.
And also the specific places you want to go to.
Yeah.
They happen to be the same places that I'd want to check out if I'm there.
Yeah. I know you.
In the UK for sure. The countryside, I've heard Scotland even more so, man.
Oh,
Like,
dude, Aki Bhabi was in Scotland a couple of months back, and I swear to God,
mhm.
like the most normal snap of the place looks so beautiful, man. Like just the grass looks
Seriously.
beautiful.
It honestly looks like paradise, man. Like, it's something else.
If it
Like,
wasn't for the people,
oh, dude. But to me, I've heard like Republic of Ireland, for example.
yeah.
It's quite like immigrant friendly, which I was
Republic
surprised
of
to hear.
Ireland. No, no, that makes sense because the Republic of Ireland, because of its tax laws, is the headquarters for a bunch of international firms, which
Hmm.
means, like companies like Facebook, Amazon, they're all set up there, and you have a bunch of people coming and going all the time. So I think since their tax law changed, they've been very open to anybody who's not British.
Fair enough. But yeah, I noticed even in their parliament, for example, there's no party that's like, there's not a single party in their parliament that's like anti-immigration.
Yeah.
And I've noticed, in the last several years, like plenty of people have even moved to Ireland, like to study and then to work there.
True,
And
true, true.
it is very expensive though, but it's cool to see that they're quite open. That's often not something people associate with um, like when people think Irish in America, like that's definitely not what comes to mind. Like
Yeah.
it's pretty neat to see that.
Dude,
But
apologies, but like Sinn Féin is like a political party that I remember because I told you, I have a couple of Irish friends, and
mhm.
every occasion they have to talk about the atrocities that the past kings of England and the Church of England have committed against them. They will absolutely give you, like every Irishman knows the history, yeah. And I've found it very interesting, but I've also heard it a lot of times. But again, I am surprised as well by their immigration laws. But dude, the stories of like, all right, Dublin's Dublin, yeah, but like when you hear of the stories of places like Limerick, right? What's happening with the drug dealers and what's happening with the like shootouts? It's pretty much gangs of Wasseypur, yeah. So
That's wild.
I'm always like I have friends from these small towns who grew up in Ireland and kind of got out. So when you hear their stories, it sounds like a proper ghetto place, and I'm quite like I know there's an urban centre or urban centres in Ireland which are all right, but if you go to like the countryside, it is proper messed up.
Man, I believe it. I'm sure like it has its rough parts, and especially a country that's seen like civil war. I'm sure it's had kind of like reeling after effects,
Yeah,
on like the country, and I bet there's social divisions as well. Like I don't know what relations are like there between Catholics and Protestants, but
oh yeah,
I'm sure
yeah,
I'm sure those wounds have not fully healed.
yeah, and they're also like they're a country that's finding themselves. Like I know a lot of people who've gotten out of Ireland who are, going above and beyond to find teachers for Gaelic for their kids. It's pretty weird.
Oh wow, yeah, dude, that sounds very familiar. Like to preserve Gaelic,
Yeah,
right? Like, yeah, I remember somebody I met who's from Ireland was talking about this. How he does speak a little bit of Gaelic because
yeah,
they've kind of made efforts to revive it.
yeah.
But good for them, man. I mean, it gets back to that thing we talked about last time about nation building.
Mm,
That we often forget that these were all like separate states at one
yeah,
point. Like even the different parts of the UK, for example, were different kingdoms
yeah,
that were kind of like annexed and like amalgamated into this one united kingdom.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and same with France, like these regional identities were kind of subordinated in favor of the larger French identity. And
yeah,
so, along with that, a lot of languages were declined as well. Like they stopped being spoken, or they were like deleted for official purposes.
Yeah.
Like Punjabi in Pakistan, man. I'm surprised, but it's not even an official language in the state of Punjab. Like Punjab has one official language, and it's Urdu.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before, but like just before we go to Pakistan, I just want to just remember, for the sake of everyone, that we are forgetting Wales on purpose. We don't care, yeah. But on Punjabi, it's like I've heard. We know a lot of Punjabis, yeah. And like the one thing they'll tell you is that if you're Punjabi in Pakistan, it's kind of looked down upon to speak Hindi. But if you're outside, it's seen as as a matter of pride. So
Right.
I think again with the Urdu movement, I understand why, because if you're nation building, Punjabi is spoken in India as well, and it kind of links you back to your pre-division nationhood. So and I understand why like the founders of Pakistan would do this, because you can't have Balochi, you can't have Pindi, you can't have all these languages and then just expect people to think that they belong to one region. So you implement like a
Right.
nationwide language, and Urdu was that. But like what they did is that they kind of trod down on people who speak Punjabi. They changed the
Yeah.
social status that is associated with it, like being Belgian, for example. So
Definitely.
the negative impact of that is you have very few kids who speak Punjabi or have formal training in Punjabi, and you kind of tread on their art and their writing and everything that comes with that. And whenever you do that, what happens is pretty much after a generation or two, the language makes a comeback, right? You can't keep these things down forever. And when it comes back, it kind of comes back as a movement that was bigger than what you tried to kill. So I've always believed it's better to let everything coexist and then have a consensus form on its own. But again, it's hard to say, because see, like if where I'm from, the language from there is like has 14 different dialects. It depends on where you're from and how you speak and what
Yeah.
words you use. And
That's it.
yeah, and me personally, like just for example, I speak like the RP version of that because my exposure to that language is international. I've heard people speak it here. I've not heard like somebody like my cousin, for example, Tife. He grew up there. He speaks it very differently than I do. My cousins from my mother's side, they speak it very differently from what I do. My accent is considered like the book, proper, the proper Zabani. So
Same.
like I know people who are trying to whitewash their families and not have them speak this language, right? And I understand, but like at the same time, putting down a language doesn't really do anything. Like that language is not a language I prefer to talk in or I write in. I don't write in that language at all. Write poetry in, I know how to write it, but it's not a very romantic language. But the moment you put it down, it starts like an underground movement and it becomes way too popular. But Punjabi, to be honest, is a language that I quite like, and I think it has its own sense of. I think the only reason I don't like Punjabi all that much is just because it's not as respectful as Urdu, but it is a great language without doubt. And I don't know where all this is like going. Like it's the same with Gaelic. It's the same with a lot of different languages. I think with time, a few of them die out. But if you try to make them die out on your own, then you're just extending its lifetime.
I know what you mean. And yeah, man. I mean, in the case of like, Gaelic, there's very few people now who even speak it at all.
Yeah.
Just because over a long time it was like systematically erased, and like the advantages of speaking English were just so much higher, being part of the British Empire, and I think the same thing happens with a lot of regional languages when there's like domination of one group. And I think just in the case of Punjabi, though, it's just fortunate that it hasn't erased the language. Like, sure, it's like seen as, it's looked down upon.
Yeah.
It's seen the social status, like you said, that's associated with it as one of like, people call you things like Bindu, if you speak it. And,
my favorite meme pages are all Bindu pages, but yeah.
And yeah, you're right, man. These stigmas do exist around it, but I was just, you'll notice that in all the other provinces, though, like the official language, they still retained their own language.
Yeah.
Like it's, Baluchi in Baluchistan, Sindhi in Sindh. Pakistan's like, Punjab's like the only province where, they don't use Punjabi at all for any official purposes, like, like even if you see like an intellectual show, for example, like, let's say you were to watch like an issue on policy matters in Baluchistan, it's just a given that the discussion will happen in Baluchi because that's their language, What other language would they have discussions of their issues in, It's like their native language. And you'll see that in every province, like for people, despite speaking Urdu as kind of like a common language, they'll still speak their own language as like as a kind of, amongst themselves, they'll still speak their own language,
True.
And Punjabi is the only one where I've never seen any like, like a debate on policy matters, for example, or like a discussion on like Islamic matters, True. It'll always be in like, even in areas where people are illiterate and many people would only speak Punjabi, those kinds of talks and discussions and like things that are considered like to be of intelligence and of like sophistication, even in Punjab and among Punjabis, they'll happen in Urdu, and that's something that I've often thought about, that it does feel like you're, it's their own language too, which is what surprises me is like the people who do this, they're the ones who are
in power.
Native.
Yeah.
Yup. And they're Punjabis themselves, but I think many of them have internalized this idea that like, yes, it is like, an unsophisticated uncouth to speak Punjabi. Mm-hmm. And as a result, they just kind of discard it in favor of Urdu,
I agree. I think that's the only way you can do it. If you have the elites of your, language, putting it down, then I guess, you have like a small social stigma against it, which is prevalent throughout society. Then it makes sense, but like, I don't think the Baloch elite want to do that, or the Sindhi elite want to do that, but the Punjabi elite, they do. So...
Definitely, man, definitely.
But
and
also
even now,
the Punjabi elite, I think they see themselves as like the purveyors of Urdu, I think they want to associate themselves as like the guys who are the ones behind Urdu, which is why maybe they're getting rid of Punjabi, maybe.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, because Urdu has always had the status associated with it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was spoken in courts. It was spoken in like when the Mughal Empire was in power, by aristocrats, by lawyers, by judges.
Yeah.
Basically people of like higher society, as well as by like, people who are known for being thinkers. Like they often wrote in Urdu, It was just a language that's been associated with sophistication for much of like the subcontinent's history.
Yeah.
And but if you do look at where it's like Urdu is native to, right? Like who are the people who speak Urdu natively, like as their first language, as their native language?
Yeah.
Then there's really only a few regions in the subcontinent, and it's like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Hyderabad, and parts of and Kashmir as well.
God damn it! Yeah,
where
you named like you named like three places I hate the most in the world.
man. But yeah, that's the thing, man. That's where Urdu has its roots, you know. Like even now, like most of these things that like we sort of think of as Pakistani cuisine or even Pakistani language, you know.
Right.
They typically have their roots based in that one belt between Uttar Pradesh and Bihar.
Yeah.
Like Nihari, you know, comes from Lucknow. Urdu comes from around Lucknow as well. And yeah, man, all of these things like, but Punjabis, like, I think from the very start, because Urdu had this like greater importance, they started having like this inferiority, you know, like if you speak Punjabi, you just don't seem like you get a seat at the table, you know what I mean?
Yeah, true. भाई मुझे दो चीज़ तो कहना है. एक तो बात ये है कि आपकी बात तो मुकम्मल हकीकत है, मगर यार लखनऊ की बंदी से हमसे मोहब्बत नहीं होंगे, ये एक बात है. वरना
यार ये तो मैं समझ सकता हूँ.
जी, बंदी हमें सिर्फ पाकिस्तान की चाहिए भाई. और यार दूसरी बात ये है कि एक बड़ी नालायक पॉडकास्ट है जो यूट्यूब पर है, ऑनेस्ट आवर नाम है उसकी, जो शाबिर जाफरी है उसकी पॉडकास्ट है, मगर उसकी एक एपिसोड है जिसकी नाम है लौंडा टॉक पार्ट 2, राइट, एंड इट्स बंच ऑफ नालायक बंदे इंक्लूडिंग दनियल जफर.
Nice.
And it's just one episode, but in that episode they talk about the same thing about Punjabi, because they're all Punjabi except that's one Pashto dude whose name's Zarar, but the rest are Punjabi, and they talk about how Punjabi is being downtrodden on, and how the prevalence of Urdu, and they're, you know, pseudo intellectuals, you know, obviously the kids our age or actors obviously like ही होंगे. But they do say a lot of things that make sense, and बाकी सब तो सुनकर अच्छा लगेगा, वैसे कोई ज़्यादा बात नहीं उसमें. But I'm always surprised by, you know, how I feel the two of us are very intellectual, and then some other idiot does a podcast with 4 dudes who are his age, and they seem to agree on everything, and they seem to have the answer to every problem in the world. So पता नहीं भाई.
But ये बात तो है, you know, it's like he's got a point. It's good to see that more young Punjabis are aware of that, because a lot of the previous generations just kind of bought into this, you know, idea of like a pan Muslim identity in the subcontinent. But slowly, like the divisions were just, you know, like you had linguistic divisions, then sectarian divisions, then divisions within those sects, and then like it kind of the whole dream was like broken, you know, of like this one unified identity of like all Muslims in the subcontinent living together, you know, and speaking the same language, living the same way.
Any pan ideology is bound to fail. Like pan-Arabism failed. Anything, you know, that tries to bring people together will just take them apart.
Yeah, especially on a basis so broad as like religion, where they had like 20 other differences, you know, like and they tried to unite everyone based on this one very broad banner, where you know, what could a Muslim from Kerala, for example, have in common with someone with Salman from Gujarat, for example, you know?
Ooh, dude, you've done that one well. There's a lot of layers to that question.
Because it's like, you know, I do know that there was people who migrated from like Tamil Nadu or Kerala, or I've even heard of like Bombay and, you know, Marathi speaking Muslims who migrated to Pakistan.
Yeah.
And most of them obviously like assimilated and, you know, like assimilated into this broader identity.
Yeah.
But But you'll see that those were like exceptions, you know, where for the average person from any of these areas, like it would be like you would feel like an alien in a place like Punjab, you know.
I agree.
Yeah. Even if you share the same religion, you would. That's the only thing that you would have in common. Other than that, you know, speak a different language, have completely different like traditions and way of life, and I think, you know, just any kind of pan ideology like that doesn't really consider like all the ways in which people are different, and like I think that's what ended up happening in the end is like the division started to like become unmanageable, and you know, it became clear that like despite having this one thing in common, they had like 20 other things that they didn't have in common, and where those were like sources of deep division. And yeah, that's I think what we've seen in like the 70-year history of Pakistan, where like linguistic divisions right off the bat splits the country into two.
Yeah.
Then they had like sectarian war for like, you know, 20 to 30 years with like that's still going on in some ways with you know, between Shias and Sunnis in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Where even now maybe you heard like Iran attacked Pakistan recently.
Oh yeah, dude, that was just a clusterfuck between two countries that are just doing dumb shit.
और उसके बाद पता है लोग क्या कह रहे थे, हाँ ये शियाओं की साजिश होगी पाकिस्तान में, you know, जरूर वो भी मिले होंगे इसमें कि that kind of, you know, they're always blamed as like being with, you know, being pro-Iran and having their loyalties elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that the founders of Pakistan really didn't see, you know, like, I mean, Muslim League, mostly they had their own interests in mind. That was another thing. But even the idea, like, people who supported it, they really didn't consider how, like, deep the other divisions could get, you know?
Yeah, and I think, you know, the Shias in general, I mean, Iran, up until the revolution was not even, you know, like, ruled by a Shia. But you see a lot of like Shia majority states, like Iraq, for example, is ruled by a Sunni party, the Ba'ath Party, and like the thing is, like as you said, if you try to unite people on a pan basis, what happens is they're either, you know, if you can see beyond divisions, you can see beyond all human divisions, not just the one on religion, right? So there is no pan Islam or pan Arabism, because if you can see past those small boundaries, then you can see past all of them. We're all human at the end. But if you can't, then you can't see past anything. You can't see anything but differences between you and your neighbor. So it's down to, and really when you try to unite these various ideologies, what happens is the front runner or the majority tends to get, you know, the say on what is to happen, and minorities, you know, would rather prefer to be a minority and have their values protected than be part of something that really achieves nothing for them. Like, it doesn't define them, and neither does it help them in any way. When push comes to shove, you know, they know they're not the first preference. But
exactly, yeah.
It is hard to kind of bring this together, bring this to a point that makes sense, because like, for example, what happened between Iran and Pakistan is just stupidity, you know, across both borders. But at the same time, there are Shias in Pakistan, but at the same time, if you ask them to immigrate to Iran, it's not what they would want to do, because that's not what they identify with either. Like, Shia Pakistanis are just Pakistanis, man. There's not too much difference in them anyway, and
definitely. I mean, the Hazaras are probably a bit different, but even they, like, the ones who are in Pakistan, they've been there for a long time, you know, so they
Yeah,
they wouldn't want to leave. They're just from there. They speak the language there, and
they're
that's
more
kind of where they're
Pakistani
settled.
than they're Shia, you know?
I know what you mean. But that's the thing, man. I mean, since the country was built on this, like, on this basis of religion,
Yeah.
then it's like, it begs the question of, like, whose interpretation of the religion is the most correct one, That's immediately the next question, because it's like, well, if our laws are going to be based on faith, then, like, whose interpretation of the faith are we going to go with, And that's when, like, you start to see all these other divisions come into play. And I think it's no coincidence that when it comes to sectarianism, like, Pakistan has probably seen the most of it. Then, like, in terms of, like, it's not just, a violence between Shias and Sunnis in Pakistan, but also, like, violence among Sunnis themselves, where there's, like, Deobandis and, like, Barelvis. Yeah, Barelvi mostly, And, like, I was just shocked to see that how, like, how on the smallest of things that the disagreements can become that violent, where it's like you have two groups that agree on every single thing except one small thing, and that becomes a point of conflict that turns to violence,
Again, I'm annoyed by the fact that both the Deobandi and the Barelvi movements have started in Uttar Pradesh. I think the only solution to all of these problems is to nuke UP as it is.
सब वहीं से शुरू हुआ था मेरा ख्याल है, क्योंकि हाँ भाई सही बात की आपने कि देवबंद तो वो शहर का नाम है मेरा ख्याल है यूपी में, और बरेली तो है ही, वो तो आप जानते ही हैं। पर हाँ ब्रो, ये पता नहीं ये कब तक चलते रहेगा।
यूपी में क्या मसला है यार, चल क्या रहा है?
क्योंकि ब्रो क्या था ना, पहले वैसे देखें तो आई मीन बरेली अभी नाम दे दिया है उन्हें, पर इन जनरल लाइक like in the subcontinent initially, like most Muslims they were like Sufis, like they became Muslim as like by getting into contact with Sufi saints, like learning about Islam from Sufi saints. So that's kind of like the interpretation they adopted. But then in the future there were obviously other like interpretations that emerged, and that either like other schools of thought that emerged, and they were bound to come into conflict. I mean, from the start, like this isn't new, but from the start, like there's always been tension between Sufi Islam and the Orthodoxy. Like from their beginning, because they'll often say things that the Orthodoxy would not approve of, and believe in ideas that the Orthodoxy would not approve of. Even in songs, for example, where it's like asking, like Bhardo Choli Ali,
Oh, dude, I love this song way too much. But
yeah, and like it's something that like has been practiced for a long time, and it's something people do as just as part of their traditions. But then there are like, and in Pakistan, this group has really become more emboldened and then bigger and more, louder, and where they condemn like anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, this is like bid'ah at best and like shirk at worst. And those kinds of issues became more and more like at a point of debate and like disagreement and violence in Pakistan's history, because there was an attack at Sewan Sharif, right? Yeah, so there was an attack at the shrine there, the Lal Shahbaz Qalandar shrine. it was a few years ago, and like over 100 people were killed, you know, and they were like either, I think, you know, like a Salafi or a Deobandi group that claim responsibility.
Yeah.
And when you just think about how like narrow these divisions are, you know, like that sort of stuff didn't really happen in Sindh before the state of Pakistan was founded. It was sort of this ideology of like, we're all the same, we have no differences, you know, and like panism, like you said.
Yeah.
That everything, the divisions became more important than the similarity at some point.
Yeah, dude. And what pisses me off is the Deobandi movement, right? Since it's taken off, has had backing, yeah, from the Wahhabis. And this is what really annoys me. Like when you put state funds behind a religious movement, which leads to sectarian divides. That is like Wahhabism. I understand why it exists, because the state of Saudi Arabia needed to be formed and you needed an allegiance, right? But like there is no need to export that kind of shit to the rest of the world, because like, and I think where from does a very good example of this. Like there's a point at which you know, it became a proper question, like what is the state religion, like with sects, and you know the answer was and the Grand Mosque here, right, which is in Masharib, outside that maybe 20 years ago the Emir was there and he said, I am Muslim and I'm Qatari, and that's it. That's all that defines us. The moment you get into sectarian divisions within religion, like it makes lesser and lesser sense, because the schools of thought are schools of thought, you know, they're allowed, but it's not like, regardless of where I am, I pray in a masjid, you know. I don't care ki kaun-si masjid hai. And there are people who don't do that, like they go to Salafi masjids only, or they would rather miss a prayer than, you know, pray at different mosque. That is a social thing. That's not religion. Yeah, like socially you want to do whatever you want to do, that's fine. But like this is true within every religion. Yeah, makes. I'm not sure if, I think I've seen divisions within atheists as well. So
Fair.
I think it's this human, you know, approaches to wanting to find differences and wanting to be defined by something that is more and more specific. But like I said the last time, you know, like you look at your neighbor, you look at your cousin, you will see differences. And the worst form of this is again marriage proposals, because I've seen people who have put, you know, like 3-4 details, like we're looking for a woman who, you know, has legs, has a mind, and does not commit bid'ah. Like यार इससे भी ज़्यादा अहम तो बात पहले कहना है, सही? Like ये सिर्फ कहने के लिए क्यों आता है? ये सिर्फ ये चाहिए तो तुम, मतलब मुझे पता नहीं यार कि I'm telling you this, like आपकी भाभी अगर सुन रहे तो like it would make no difference to me. I'm very lucky in the fact that we're very similar in our religious beliefs, but if she was Shia, it wouldn't make a difference to me. It was fine, like जो भी है school of thought है.
No, I feel that, man. And it's interesting you mentioned that its relationship to like marriage and relationships, because man, I remember this was one of my favorite Pakistani performers, right? Or one of my favorite artists.
Yeah.
His name is Ali Gulpir.
Alright.
You must know him, dude.
Of course.
Okay, so Ali Gulpir is like an icon, right? He's like, man, you won't believe it, but he went to school with a buddy of mine.
What?
Yeah, they were good friends, man. Like they used to roast him a lot, but now he's like famous and he's like huge, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, man, he's like he's Sindhi, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at like religious traditions in Sindh, like they're very Sufi. Like their traditions are very like Islam came to Sindh through Sufi saints.
Yeah.
So the traditions that people adopted were very much Sufi, and that's where this whole like culture of Qawwali and making Qawwalis and like music even as a form of devotion. That's kind of how that culture like became a thing. Whereas it's something that hardline and orthodoxy would definitely not approve of. Any music in like that, with instruments and everything.
True.
But then, the thing is, I remember him saying this, that because of that, when you look at Sindh, right, like their practices are quite different from the rest of the countries often. Like if you see what they do at Sehwan Sharif or even Sindhi, like, things that they consider to be part of religious practices, you won't really see them in other parts of the country.
True.
Or you'll only see them among Sufis, I should say. Even if you see them in Punjab, it'll be among like more Sufi Muslims.
Yeah.
So for that reason, he wears like this dhaga, on his wrist.
Yeah. Like
there's two dhagas, and you'll see many Sufis wear this, right? Like many people who, I should say, they follow teachings of Sufi saints as well. Like they have like respect for those guys. They often wear like a black and a red dhaga, like two dhagas. And I remember him saying this, it's just like a traditional thing that he does, right? And he barely talks about his beliefs and stuff, but he was in a relationship with a girl for a very long time.
Right.
And then finally, when the talk came to marriage and like meeting her parents and stuff, she told him this, she was like, ek baat, before you meet my parents, tumhe ye dhaga utarna hoga, kyunki, she must have been from like maybe a more,
Orthodox.
More Orthodox background where they really don't, if they see even like, many people wear this all over the subcontinent, but like it's on the neck. क्या कहते हैं उसे?
यार मुझे पता है कि क्या है, मगर नाम क्या है भाई?
जब बॉलीवुड में तो हर फिल्म में वो दिखाते थे, they show someone wearing it.
What was it called? Man, shit. No, I can't remember the name. But I know what you mean.
क्या नाम था? भूल ही गया यार, but it's like an amulet of sorts, you know what I mean?
It's kind of like an amulet, yeah.
And honestly, many people in the subcontinent wear it, but in Sindh, like, you'll see accessories like that very often, like, like people wearing like Peer Baba's clothes, like orange clothes and like a Sufi gown or like, dhage and all of that. And it's just how they interpret the faith, it's different, but it's like, it still has its basis in theology. Like, even if you look at like the Sufi scholars they're still Islamic scholars who studied like the Quran and the Hadiths and like, jurisprudence. Like, they're not just some guy off the street, you know what I mean?
True.
But just like the way they understand and read these texts is quite different.
Yeah.
And some people are just completely intolerant of that, They're like, no, man, ye to matlab, it's just, it's a disgrace. It's not permissible. It shouldn't be allowed in the country even. And if you see people doing it, you should like discourage it and like, like call it out. There are many people who feel that way now, whereas like in Pakistan, like it was just unheard of before, where even if there were Orthodox groups and Sufis that they've always existed. But it wasn't to the point where they were like, no, you cannot do this at all, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it's not allowed to do this. And, like, if you do, like, we're going to kill you, you know?
True.
Whereas now, man, that kind of thinking is, like, it just makes me sad that it's in a country that was, you know, where coexistence has been a thing for so long in a region that now it's just one of those things where the slightest difference in ideology can lead to violence.
True. And just on a lighter note, yeah, there's like you've seen that I wear like hair ties on my hand, and it's been like a habit that I've had for a while. Like this started when I was in university. I kind of had long hair and I kept losing track of my hair ties because that is something that is very common. And because, you know, I'm not a woman, it's not very easy to find, so I didn't want to lose too many. So I just start wearing them then. I do have them on my hands now, but like, just for the record, I want to state that, you know, the ones on my hands now are more for memory than it is for tying my hair. I do not use these to tie my hair. These are like I've two on both hands, and
No way.
yeah, and they're all from when it all has something to do with when I met your bhabhi. You know, one's from the day I met her, one's from like the first time we spoke. So each one is special, yeah. Um, and there's also a line from a song. It's an OST called Khuda aur Mohabbat, and the first line is तावीज़ बना के मैं पहनूं तुझे.
Oh, bhai. Bro, that's what it was, Taviz, yeah, legit.
Oh, yeah. I apologize for actually forgetting the one thing that I was stuck in my head, but I know.
Dude.
Yeah.
Man, that's even crazier now that you tell me that song lyric, because I must have heard that song like 200 times, you know?
No,
like,
dude, no.
आपको शायद याद भी होगा कि एक ज़माना था जब हम, you know, we would just get obsessed with a song and just play it on loop like all day.
ये कल था.
यार ये मेरे साथ शायद 6, I think I was in 8th or 9th, no 9th, right?
Yeah.
When I became obsessed with the song and the lyrics and the idea of just dancing on top of a train.
Yeah.
And so I remember like just listening to it on loop, right? And also I liked Taviz's, you know, like I wanted to buy one as well, but like I didn't know where to go to go shopping for them. But I remember like that lyric is just so, you know, should be etched in our memory, but I guess sometimes we're not reliable.
Most of the time. But, oh, dude, like, I know exactly what you mean. I wanted to have paraphernalia, you know, like, I wanted to have a bunch of different weird shit in my life that for जो मेरी तरक्की के लिए मुझे मिले नहीं, सही, अच्छी बात है. But for wearing hair ties, yeah, and these are just hair ties. Like, you can buy this at any store that sells things for women, yeah? Like I've been like at marriages or like at functions, mostly in Amok, and people have come up to me, like my grandmother's come up to me and been like, you know, why are you wearing like, you know, Hindus have a thing for wearing threads on the hands, which are like what you call it? They're like part of a puja, and then you get one, right? It's to help protect you, right? So a lot of people have come up to me and said, why are you wearing this? Like, are you no longer Muslim? And I said, no, it's just to, you know, I keep telling them it's just to tie my hair, man. Doesn't mean that I'm not Muslim. But it's they know that, you know, they want to kind of make a point with the fact that religion is not just what you believe in, but also what you look like, right? And I don't look like anything that I'm supposed to be. I don't look like Like when I was in university, I didn't look like I was a good student. I wasn't, but I also didn't look like it. I don't want to be defined by that. Like, for example, if you want to think of a stereotypical Muslim, you think of like a really long beard, a hat on his head, and a mark on his forehead from the times he's been in Sajda. But that's not exactly what I want to look like. I don't want to look like any of the things that I am. So I try to
No, for
stay.
sure.
Yeah, I try to stay away from stereotypes. But the more you stay away from it, you kind of realize the more society propagates that stereotype. They want to give you an identity. They want to brand you as something. And the thing about us is that we don't believe in branding. We believe it, but we don't believe in being branded by it.
No, that's very true. And I think, I think you can't really expect uniformity in a group of like 1.5 billion people, because
yeah, what is common?
yeah, for sure, man. I mean, everyone, even if everyone of those people practices the same faith, like the way they do it is different, from person to person.
Yeah.
And from region to region as well.
Yeah.
Like even the small things, man. Like, I was thinking the other day, like amongst Pakistanis, like if you wish them Eid Mubarak, they'll say Khair Mubarak.
Oh, and, dude, this is like something I learned from your bhabhi as well. Like I started saying Khair Mubarak after I heard her say to me.
Mm-hmm.
But spot on.
That's what I mean, dude. And Pakistan's like the only place where people do that.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't describe it as like something that shouldn't be allowed. It's just
it's
like
it's like a different approach. Yeah.
Exactly. Like everyone has like because at the end of the day, like everything you do is even how you practice faith. It's going to be influenced to some extent by your culture.
Absolutely.
Like when people sing qawwalis, like they do them in, in like Punjabi or in Urdu or in, Awadhi or whatever language qawwalis usually are in.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's just because that's the only language those people know, right? Like the qawwals.
Yeah.
And so obviously, like there's an element of their own culture that comes into it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, Sindh historically was very like,
Sufi.
like a lot of different groups like coexisted there
Yeah.
and like influenced each other's like practices. So there were just even a lot of the like Sufi practices, they would look a lot like you're doing like ibadat at a puja,
Yeah, true. But again, I don't know, man. Like I'll be honest with you. I personally don't have too many. This is not going to be easy to come by, right? But like I have a shit ton of friends, but I don't have too many close friends. And of my close friends, I don't have too many Muslims. Like it's been very normal, But that's not the common case. Like most people, their friends even are, from the same place, from the same culture. Whereas we are kind of tired of, who we are, so we try and look for different things. But most people, they live in a shell, man. They live, in an echo chamber. And that's the problem with the world.
That really is, man. And you're spot on because echo chamber is what the word that would come to mind when I would see the kind of like WhatsApp groups people are in like India, for example, they're all just big circle jerks where people are just they see things that they already agree with.
Circle.
And yeah, man, that's honestly sad. Like, it's been made worse by social media for sure, where we're all just in echo chambers where we just hear what we want to hear.
Yeah. But I don't know, man. Like, I'm not going to say that the answer is to have a wider exposure to things because that brings with it a bunch of other, like the wider you go, the more you realize no one is defined by anything at all. Like
Dude,
every
that's
yeah, yeah,
no. Sorry to cut you off, but you
yeah,
put it perfectly, man. That was my realization too.
yeah,
Like, as soon as I have the slightest exposure to diversity, I'm
yeah,
like, oh man, like, so everyone's a cunt.
yeah. yeah. यार हम यार मसले की बात कर रहे, कोई हल ही नहीं होते. लाइक हम जो भी कहते हैं, हम एक मसले से दूसरे मसले सिर्फ जा रहे हैं. But it is true that is, in conclusion, the world is fucked.
That's it. That's what it is,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. But
Yeah, man. I mean, it's probably like I've tried to. This is one of my resolutions for this year, even though like
right.
I don't know how successful I'll be at it, but just to reduce the amount of time I spent on Reddit, because
Right.
man, when you look at like posts on front page Reddit, right, they're
Yeah.
always like
Yeah, I know.
something that tells you about the depressing state of the world.
Exactly.
When you look at the comments, it's all gloom and doom, and
Yeah.
that's all like I don't want to get caught up in that cycle of like doom scrolling, you know.
True.
And I think it would be really good for me. It's something I wanted to do for a long time, like not use Reddit or like use it less at least.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, I think that will help us a great deal in terms of like I don't know how much time we still spend on Reddit, but for me, it'll definitely help in terms of being more optimistic about the world and just being more upbeat. Because man, all that negative energy all that negative news can definitely start to weigh on you. You know.
I agree, and like I don't actually like. I like to judge things on my own. I don't read too many news articles or anything that's subjective. I'll take the objective shit. I'll take the numbers, but I very rarely actually listen to opinions on Reddit because Reddit is for the people like us, and I wouldn't listen to myself. But like just as an example, back in 2010, Imran was going haywire about SOPA, the act. And I remember it consumed him so much, and it was just a small skid mark in the history of the internet and the world. So Reddit really is like an echo chamber in itself. But आपकी भाभी के लिए, just to remind you of one of my favorite memories in 2006, in New Year's 2006, Karsh had the New Year's resolution as a kid who weighed 40 kilos to lose weight. So I'm very proud of him, as to how far he's come in that time to actually have a New Year's resolution that isn't fat phobic, or decide to oppress people. But it's a good resolution, man. But we're almost at the 1 hour mark, so we started this one with 3 places that you want to travel to. I actually did ask you where you would go, and I don't think I got an answer, but like, give me one and you can conclude this one. This is episode 16, call it whatever you want, buddy.
But no, what was the question again?
The 3 places you'd like to go to.
Oh shit, dude! How did we digress so far? Yeah. I don't even know how I forgot.
Yeah.
But it would be.
Yeah.
France.
Yeah.
Pakistan.
Yeah.
And the third one's hard.
Yeah.
But the third one is hard. Like there's still a lot to choose from, so it's hard for me to pick one.
Yeah.
But what would be number 3? Maybe some part of Switzerland. Oh, Belgium.
Belgium, yeah.
The French parts of Belgium.
Right. Child rapist. Nice. You got 30 seconds. Let's see. What's this one?
Okay.
Yeah. From Belgium to Belgaum.
From Belgaum to Belgium is a good one.
Yeah. we have gone that far. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Pointless Stories with Karshna Fez, episode number 16 from Belgaum to Belgium. We'll see you next time.